Welcome to the St. Tammany Parish Zoning Commission meeting. Today is Tuesday, August the 2nd, 2016. Madam Secretary, please call the roll.
Ms. Casabon? Mr. Richardson? Mr. Richard? Mr. Willie? Mr. Davis? Mr. Fitzmaurice? Mr. Doherty? Mr. Drum? Mr. Randolph? Chairman, we have a quorum.
Thank you. This time I would respectfully ask that you silence all phones and electronic devices. If you wish to appeal any recommendation of the Commission, appeals cards are to our right. If you wish to speak in front of the Commission, we ask that you fill out a speaker's card with your name and address. Each side will be provided 10 minutes to present with 5 minutes for rebuttal. And lastly, after each case, we would ask that you leave the chamber and if you would leave the building, because if you go back into the lobby area and you start speaking, it'll echo back into the chamber. This time I would ask for you to rise for an invocation by Commissioner Randolph, followed by the Pledge of Allegiance from Commissioner Richard.
Let's bow our heads. Gracious Father, once again we come to you with bowed down head but lifted hearts to thank you for all the blessings you bestowed on our lives. You watched over, protected us all, our families, our homes. While we were en route or away from home or at home in the yard, you took care of us. We thank you for this parish. We thank you for this government we serve. We thank you for this commission of government officers that's here to make decisions, Lord. Help us to make decisions that's in the best interest of all. In all these blessings we ask in your name. Amen.
Thank you. In our board packages, we have the minutes from the July 5th, 2016 zoning meeting. I'll entertain any motions or questions.
Motion to approve.
Motion by Commissioner Randolph to approve, second by Commissioner Dougherty. Any further comments? Please vote. Motion carries. Staff, are there any cases which you wish to be postponed?
Yes, Mr. Chairman. Number 2 on the agenda, 2016-294-ZC and 2016-295-ZC, and Representative Mr. Shane is here to answer any questions you may have.
Thank you. We have 2 cases, and I will read those cases into the record. And Mr. Shane, if you have any comments, we'd be glad to have those. First case is 2016-294-ZC, existing zoning A1 Suburban District, proposed zoning A2 Suburban District. The parcel is 89.5501 acres. The petitioner is Jeffrey D. Shane. The owner is the Archdiocese of New Orleans, John L. Eckhold. The parcel is located on the north side of Sharp Road, east of Westwood Drive, Ward 4, District 5. Mr. Shane, any comment?
Yes, sir, Mr. Manella. Jeff Shane of the Jones Fussell Law Firm in Covington, and I represent, in this case, both the owner and the petitioner. I am the petitioner on behalf of the developer. At the community meeting that was held on this matter on July 13, Councilman Toledano was present and made comments or remarks to those in attendance. There were grave concerns that everyone that wanted to be in the chamber was not able to get into the chamber because of capacity reasons. There had been a community meeting that preceded this case, or these cases, if you will, items 2 and 3, were the second community meeting that evening. He told the people at that time that if in fact there was a desire or need for a second community meeting, he would so seek one. He has discussed that not just with me but with others, and I received an email from him yesterday suggesting that he would make arrangements through the council office, presumably communicating with staff about the possibility of a community meeting so that the cases would be postponed this evening until your September 6th meeting. We as petitioner do not object to postponement. The spirit of the last community meeting was to make sure that everyone that had wanted an opportunity to participate, to listen, to ask questions, to voice concerns, etc., have an opportunity to do so. If Mr. Toledano didn't think that that was accomplished on July 13th, we certainly don't have any problem with going to another community meeting.
Thank you, Mr. Shane. In the event that the commission does put forth a postponement, that community meeting for both cases will be held on Monday, August the 15th at 6 p.m. here in the chambers. Again, that meeting will be held on Monday, August 15 at 6 p.m. here in the Coop Drive chambers. With that, I will entertain any motions of the commission. Commissioner Davis.
Motion to postpone.
Motion to postpone. Commissioner Davis, is that for 1 month?
That's correct.
Okay, we have a motion by Commissioner Davis to postpone for 1 month, second by Commissioner Dougherty. Is that correct? Any further comments or discussion? Seeing none, please vote. The motion to postpone until next month carries. Second case is 2016-295-ZC, existing zoning A1 Suburban District and A2 Suburban District. The proposed zoning is A2 Suburban District and a planned unit development overlay. The parcel is 104.17 acres. The petitioner is Jeffrey D. Shane. The owner, the Archdiocese of New Orleans, John L. Eckold. The parcel is located on the north side of Sharp Road, east of Westwood Drive, Ward 4, District 5. The recommendation is postponement. Mr. Shane, any comments?
Yes, sir.
There is no comment. Commissioner Richard.
Motion to postpone.
Motion by Commissioner Richard to postpone, a second by Commissioner Willie. Any further discussion? Please vote. Motion carries. Again, there will be a community meeting on both of these cases held Monday, August 15th, 6 p.m. here in the Coop Drive chambers. These are public hearings, and as such, we would respectfully ask anyone in the public can speak. As we said at the beginning, while people are leaving for those two, the next case, again, is one with several people, and when we get to the point of giving opposition, we would ask that you consider having one or two speakers who will speak on behalf of those who might be in opposition. And we will also have a show of hands as they conclude their points to see what the support has been for that, so that everyone can demonstrate in that manner. Case 2016-293-ZC, existing zoning, NC4 Neighborhood Institutional District, proposed zoning, HC2 Highway Commercial District. The parcel, 1.98 acres. The petitioner, Jeffrey D. Shane. The owner, PTP Properties, LLC, Don Scott Prieto and Carrie Dina Prieto Seagrave. The parcel is located in the southwest corner of Louisiana Highway 59 and Lonesome Road, Ward 4, District 10. This case was postponed from the July 5th, 2016 meeting. Staff?
The 2025 future land use plan calls for the frontage of the site along Highway 59 to be developed with a mix of commercial uses and the rear portion of the site to be developed with residential uses compatible with the surrounding area. The site was rezoned to NC4 in 2009 through the comprehensive rezoning. Staff does not see any compelling reason to recommend approval of the request, considering that it would create a significant increase in the intensity of the zoning. At this time, staff would like to recommend denial of the request for HC2 Highway Commercial.
Thank you. Mr. Shane.
Thank you, Mr. Manella. Again, for the record, my name is Jeff Shane. I'm with the Jones Fussell Law Firm in Covington. I represent the owner of the property, PTP Properties, LLC, in connection with the proposed development. Hopefully, all of you have before you a packet that I asked staff to put on your desks this evening, which consists of a letter, my letter, dated July 25. I would ask also attached to it, there should be a single-page site plan And I ask that all of you have that handy as well, because I think it will hopefully help us in our discussion this evening and as I make my remarks. Let me start by giving a general description of the project. This site is 1.98 acres, being the southwest quadrant of the intersection of Lonesome Road and Highway 59. The tract is currently zoned NC4. The 1.98 acres is part of actually a 26.8 acre tract that is owned by my client, PTP Properties LLC. For those of you that have been by the site, you would know that it is a overgrown, densely treed underbrush site that has not been cleared, and it is positioned again in the southwest quadrant. My clients are under contract with CST Louisiana LLC, which is a company that is in the business, in this case, of building what they refer to as a neighborhood corner store. It is, in our view, an upscale convenience store that provides goods, services, and also sells gasoline. A few basics about the site would include that it is a 6,300 square foot building. It has 6 gasoline islands, if you will, that allow for a maximum of 12 fueling positions, such that no more than 12 vehicles could fuel at any one time. The site is complete, of course, with requisite parking, landscaping, lighting, drainage, sewerage and water. Arrangements will be made so that there will be central facilities at that location. The project has been designed and will be executed in accordance with all the provisions of St. Tammany Parish laws. There is no request nor need for waivers from any regulations whatsoever. In looking at this case, I would suggest to you that if we are going to consider a change of zoning from NC4 to HC2, that perhaps we best start with the purpose of HC2. And I would read to you in pertinent part that it states that the purpose of that district is to provide for moderately scaled, more intense retail located along major collectors and arterials, providing services to a portion of the parish. I don't believe that there could be a better description of the location of this tract and its intended purpose, being on Louisiana Highway 59, having obviously Lonesome Road border it and abut it, the type of goods, services that it will provide to the people, and the intensity of the zoning is certainly in line with what is in the area, but certainly does not exceed the suggestion that the use can be in fact more intense than a neighboring use. I have suggested that there are at least 5 compelling reasons that you might consider recommending that the council rezone this tract from NC4 to HC2. And I'd like to go through those reasons with you one by one. First, and in my view foremost, if you look at the northwest quadrant of this intersection, and you will see that it is zoned HC2 and that there is a well-developed mini storage facility on site, but also a carve-out in the northwest area that's undeveloped, again zoned HC2. And in fact, that HC2 area is nearly 3 times the size of the subject property. So the first point that I make to you is that if you look at the intersection, on the east side in the southeast quadrant, there is a car wash zoned HC1. In the northeast quadrant, there is a drugstore zoned HC1. In the northwest quadrant, there is a mini storage and an undeveloped tract 3 times larger than this site, zoned HC2. And if you look at the southwest quadrant, subject property, 1.9 acres, was zoned NC4 in the comprehensive rezoning process. I would suggest to you that a change of zoning to HC2 would be very compatible with what in fact is in the northwest quadrant, and in fact would be consistent with the types of highway uses that we see at the other 2 quadrants on the east side of Highway 59. The second point I would suggest is very important, is that my clients have owned this property for many, many years. I did not go back in the chain of title, but as many of you know, the Prieta family has held many properties along the Highway 59 region, literally for multiple decades. It is interesting that from 1984, when the parish conducted comprehensive rezoning, to 2009, this parcel, as well as a significant amount of their 26 acres, was zoned C2. C2 was the acronym used in the prior zoning code. It too, though, was highway commercial. It too allowed for facilities such as we are suggesting this evening, meaning a neighborhood corner store that would also have a gasoline component. Yes, in 2009, the property was downzoned as a result of comprehensive rezoning to NC4, but it would be my suggestion, having been a participant in that process, there were many, many properties that were undeveloped that in fact received a more modest zoning. You'll notice that at the same comprehensive rezoning, the properties in the northwest, northeast, and southeast quadrants were appropriately zoned highway commercial to match up with the improvements that were there. So the suggestion is, the second point is that this property has a history. This is not something new. This is not something that just comes onto the scene. In fact, since we have had zoning in the parish, the great majority of the time, this property was in fact designated to have facilities such as the one in question. The third point I would suggest to you is that any perceived impacts, or let us say the most direct impacts from the construction of the neighborhood corner store, are most likely to be absorbed by my clients surrounding 25 acres. Again, we are only seeking a recommendation as to the 1.98 acres at the corner. But as you can see on the site plan and in the vicinity map in the upper right-hand corner, there's an additional 25 acres, heavily wooded, underbrushed property that my client owns that is not a part of this zoning application. And those are the properties that are most likely to receive the impacts of sight, what you would see, sound, what you would hear, and any other impacts that might be perceived from someone having a business at that location. Fourth, and very importantly, this intersection is developed to the extent that it has signalization. LADOTD determined that because of the amount of traffic, but also because of the likelihood of development at this interchange, that signalization was appropriate. That signalization was put in many years ago. But equally importantly, LADOTD has recognized that there is a need for improved transportation facilities at this intersection. And in fact, there is a roundabout project that has a state project number and that is currently scheduled to be constructed at this location in the fall of 2017. That is suggestive that the infrastructure that's in place and is planned for this location envisions commerce and business of a magnitude of such that if it creates traffic consequence, there will be adequate infrastructure to handle the traffic consequence, not only now through signalization, but most importantly, when the roundabout is put in. I might add that the site plan has been designed in accordance with St. Tammany Parish ordinances that require that the location of setbacks, landscaping, and signage be set back to anticipate the widening of Highway 59 and the construction of the roundabout. So it won't be a situation where the facility gets built, the state goes forward to build the roundabout, the front end of the site plan gets cut off, you lose half of the landscaping, you lose the sign location, everything shrinks. Parish law does not allow you to build or plan a facility in that regard, and the appropriate allowances have been made in that regard. Last but not least, the fifth compelling reason that I think you should consider making this recommendation is in the very definition that's in the staff report itself, and that is the definition for commercial infill. Commercial infill is defined in the comprehensive plan for the parish to consist of new commercial uses developed on undeveloped tracts within existing commercial districts that are compatible with or improve upon those existing areas. such uses may be allowed a greater density of use. So, from our perspective, at the end of the day, we believe that the request that we make of you this evening is reasonable. We believe that the plan comports with parish law. We believe that the use that would be made is compatible with other uses along Highway 59 and in particular in this intersection. We believe that the infrastructure is in place to handle the perceived impacts. And perhaps last but not least, this property has a 25-year history of having been zoned appropriately for this use, and the primary buffer or property that will absorb the impacts of this project are in fact my client's property, the 25 acres that surround it. So we respectfully request that after your deliberation this evening that you recommend to the council that this property be rezoned HC-2. If I still have any time, I would like to reserve it for rebuttal.
Thank you, Mr. Shane.
Thank you, sir.
Is there anyone else who wishes to speak in favor of the petitioner? Seeing none, I would ask for the opposition, and based on the cards of Mr. Bill Daniels. Mr. Daniels, have come forth. State your name and address for the record, sir.
My name is Bill Daniels. I live in Hunters Glen subdivision, and today I'm here with the Lonesome Road Coalition that's in opposition of the rezoning. A few points I want to make, and then I would like to talk a little bit about the comments that the last speaker spoke to. So again, today I'm here representing 8 different subdivisions across a coalition, Hunters Glen, Oak Island, the Lakes, Laurelwood, Twin Oaks, Deerfield, Greenleaves, Reserve, and the States. Represents almost 1,700 property owners across the St. Tammany Parish who is opposed to this rezoning. I think we look at 3 main things as we look at this. I think the first thing is that I'm really quite candid, surprised to be here. I think a lot of this got addressed in St. Tammany's initiative, the New Direction 2025 initiative. At that point, we came together, we spent taxpayers' money to come together with input from our citizens to talk about how we're zoning across our entire parish. And at that point, we were focused on not having rezonings and kind of haphazard zonings that we're trying to do today, kind of spot zonings. And so the first thing I think, as we look at this, I think we need to avoid these type of spot rezonings and really look at that initiative that tied into the St. Tammany Parish Unified Development Code that was implemented at that time. I think secondly, I think as we look at the zoning, there's no assurances that we can go in and do any type of special use clause associated with this. So today we're talking about putting in a convenience store. What happens if the financials fall through? What happens if they decide not to do it? Once we rezone it, it's impossible for us to get the genie back in the bottle. It's now rezoned. We wake up the next day and we have a liquor store 24/7 on the corner around my house. And I guess I'm in a unique experience in the fact that not only am I on the board for Hunters Glen, not only am I part of this coalition, but I'm also a homeowner that backs up to Highway 59. I've been living on Highway 59 for over a decade. And I can tell you in that decade, the one thing that is true, and the gentleman pointed it out, and that is the level of traffic on Highway 59. And this is only going to add to that congestion. It's only going to add to that problem. And so I think we have to look at the long-term impacts of this and really consider that you have almost 1,700 homeowners coming forward and saying, we don't agree with this. We don't want this. And that really, I guess, sets into the couple of other things that I'll highlight. You know, if you think about this, he pointed out the other acreage. It's a slippery slope. If we do this spot rezoning today, right, for this 2 acres, what keeps them from coming back later and saying, well, you did it for the 2, let's do it for the 25, right? It's a slippery slope that we live in. But if we hold the line and we say, you know what, we're going to listen to our citizens, we're going to pay attention to what they want, they live in that community, and therefore we're not going to agree to this rezoning, I think we're doing what we should be doing, which is really thinking about the impact to our communities. And that touches on a couple other issues. I talked about the traffic. Matter of fact, as I drove over here today, I drove up 59. If anybody drove it today, about 20 minutes ago, you saw exactly what I was talking about, bumper-to-bumper traffic. Now, I know we're taking some steps as a parish to address that, but all we're doing by doing these rezonings is adding to that. You now have what they're advocating for is a 24-hour-a-day convenience store. What does that do? That brings in people in the middle of the night, more traffic, more congestion. We've got to avoid that situation. I think the other things to think about is, and he actually pointed it out, he said, hey, my client will absorb the brunt of the impact from the noise and the sound. I have a hard time believing that. If you live on Lonesome Road and you live on Highway 59, I don't know how he's planning on getting his trucks in there. I don't know how he's planning on doing his construction, but I can tell you they got to go down those two roads. That's the only way they're going to get in there. And I can tell you it's going to impact me. And don't forget about this. 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. What does that tell me? A whole bunch of lights. So not only are we going to be impacted by the traffic, by the congestion, now we have our skyline, which is now filled with lights, a glow in the background. And at the end of the day, if you take all that in consideration and you think about the impact this could have to our community, I think we all have to agree with what the staff recommended, which is not to do the actual rezoning and actually keep it in the zone it is today. A couple of things that he highlighted in his presentation, and that is really, he talked about some of the zoning is already in place today. I would argue we have too much construction already on, or too much commercial, excuse me, already on Highway 59. If any of us ever been over Metairie and seen Veterans Highway and seen the commercial aspect that has on the community, I don't think any of us want that in our backyard, right? I think there's a way to balance. Today, if you look around, we did some rough checking. We have roughly in a 2-mile radius, we have over 8 convenience stores today. 8! 2-mile radius. You can ride your bike. You can walk to that, right? 4 of these, you might say, well, wait a minute, we need 24 hours a day. 4 of those 24 hours a day already. We already have 4 of them that are 24 hours a day. 2-mile radius. We don't need more of this. This is not what we need for our community. And that's why so many people are stepping forward and saying, no, this doesn't make sense to us. So I ask you, as you go back and you think about this, I really want you to consider 3 things. I would like for you to consider that this was addressed in 2009. As he pointed out, this was rezoned to the zone it is today. Somebody did that on purpose. That wasn't a mistake. And so I think we need to tie back to that bigger plan that we put into place, which is the St. Tammany Parish Unified Development Code. And I think that should stand. Secondly, I think there's no way for us to, once we change the code on this, if this falls through and somebody else comes behind them, there's no way for us to control that. And we could literally wake up tomorrow with a liquor store, small hotel in the corner here, something that none of us wants. And then third, and probably just as important, is setting precedents, right? This is a slippery slope that if you now go in and do spot zoning, we run the risk that everybody comes behind them and says, you did it for them, you got to do it for us. Thank you for your time. Appreciate it.
Yeah. Identify each of the resolutions, so you have resolutions from each of them.
Yeah.
How many homeowners?
Yeah. Okay. One last point, if I could, sir. We do have resolutions from all those subdivisions. Each of them have passed resolutions against the changing of the zoning. So Hunters Glen, 122 property owners in favor for not rezoning. Oak Island, 66 property owners. Again, the board passed a resolution for Oak Island against this rezoning. The Lakes, 130 property owners. Again, passed the resolution against this rezoning. Laurelwood, 112 property owners. Once again, another example, passed a resolution against the rezoning. Twin Oaks, 19 property owners. Again, passed a resolution against the rezoning. Deerfield, 71 property owners. Again, passed a resolution against the rezoning. Greenleaves, 961 property owners. Again, passed the resolution against the rezoning. And then Reserve in the States, 196 property owners, passed a resolution against the rezoning. Thank you.
Thank you. Needless to say, we had a audible, but show of hands who supports Mr. Daniels' position. Thank you. Mr. Shane, you wish to have a rebuttal?
Yes, sir. How long for rebuttal?
You have 7 minutes.
Okay, thank you. I appreciate and respect Mr. Daniels' remarks, and I appreciate and respect the sentiment of all of the owners that live in that area. Certainly, in the great country we live in, all of us are entitled to form opinions and express ourselves, and that's obviously the beauty of what this country is all about. I don't think it's trite to suggest that we should maybe not lose sight of the Prieto family as well. For it's the Prieto family that has owned this particular piece of property for many, many, many decades. It's the Prieto family that in fact enjoyed an HC2 zoning for 25 years. I don't think it necessarily means that they're entitled to anything as it relates to zoning and land use. I don't believe that's a right that you necessarily are born with. I would only suggest that perhaps their perspective, and it's one that I hope that you consider, is that they as property owners have a reasonable right to seek what they believe to be not only a higher and better use of the property, but one that is reasonable, one that is in accord with other land uses, not only on Highway 59, but on state highways in general, and one that gives them an opportunity to exercise their rights as well. I'd like to be specific with regard to my comments to some of those that Mr. Daniels made. This request is far from a spot zone. From a technical perspective, I only ask you to look at the northwest quadrant, which is zoned HC2, which abuts a residential subdivision, literally, and which is 3 times larger than this site. There is also HC1 literally across the street, and there's obviously other forms of highway commercial up and down Highway 59. So a spot it is not. Also, our code does not contain conditional use provisions. There are no ways to, I guess, limit, if you will, the use of the track if it's appropriately zoned. I would suggest to you, though, and you as experienced commissioners, I know understand this, a site by virtue of its size does present some limitations as it relates to what other types of uses can be made there. There's a 50% lot coverage rule. There are buffer requirements. There are setback requirements. I'm not suggesting other uses can't be made on the site, but I am suggesting that you can't look at everything in HC2 and suggest that if for some reason this project doesn't go or it fails, that other use would necessarily pop up. The suggestion that the rezoning of 2 acres opens Pandora's box to the rezoning of the 25 acres is the furthest thing from the truth, in my view, because having done this for a long time and watched this commission and council very carefully, although it's always important to note other zoning cases and what you have done and what you have not done, each case has its own merit. It has its own facts. It has its own details. The thought that someone would put 25 acres of HC2 literally next to Deerfield subdivision and literally across from Oak Island subdivision, that's not something my client wants to do, but even if we did, I have a pretty good idea of what the answer to that question might be. With regard to the other stores that are on Highway 59, I spent the time and visited each of those stores from I-12 to the Highway 59 1088 interchange. Interestingly, those are 24-hour, 7-day-a-week stores. I'm referring specifically to the Circle K and to Swifties. I am not aware of 7 stores within a 2-mile radius of this particular location. There's the Kangaroo store as well by I-12. My point is that there are other stores in this area that serve similar purposes that seem to operate successfully and provide a service, hopefully, to the people that live in that area. A few months ago, you heard a request to rezone the southwest quadrant of Sharp Road and Highway 59 to HC2. And in my view, you wisely, as did the council, rejected that request because, in fact, there was existing residential zoning and existing residential development homes literally on the boundary of the property in question. The point that I've tried to make this evening is that the 25 acres that my client owns, is in fact what borders the perimeter of the 1.98 acres. This is a far contrast to the Sharp Road case or to many other cases. And in fact, if you look at the HC2 zoning in the northwest quadrant, it literally abuts Oak Island subdivision. In this case, the HC2 will still be 780 feet from the closest point in Deerfield and 440 feet from the entranceway into Oak Island. With regard to lighting, parish requirements do not allow us to create a glow in the sky. These will be LED fixtures. They will be shoebox type receptacles that cast the light downward. As you know, there are candle power requirements that do not allow a certain amount of light to go beyond the perimeter of the site. So the suggestion that we're going to light up that part to the point that it's obnoxious or unfair to those that live in the area is simply not true. Last but not least, I would just like to close in saying that it seems to me the simplest statement I can make about why you should consider making this recommendation is that this is a request for a highway commercial district on a state highway at an intersection that is signalized soon to become a roundabout. When we look at the definitions for HC2, for commercial infill, and the other things that I talked about earlier, there is an opportunity for a well-run, code-compliant neighborhood corner store to not only be successful from the owner and operator's perspective, but also something that can be complementary to the people that live in that area. I ask you to take that into consideration this evening. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Shane. Opposition, rebuttal, Mr. Daniels or another representative? You will also be given 7 minutes.
Okay, thank you. Yes, I appreciate his comments. There's a few things I'd talk about relative to that. You know, the first comment about the family, and they've held it for a lot of years, and that's great. I really appreciate that, but I don't know why that's a factor for me and me rezoning land just because they've owned land for 25 years. That's terrific. Don't know why that's relevant to me and how my lifestyle and the community's lifestyle relative to this development. Secondly, I think he referenced, hey, my clients, they own all the other acreage. Don't worry, they don't want to get any rezoning. There's not going to be a slippery slope here. They own it today. What if they sell it tomorrow? Right? What about the next guy? Right? So he can speak to his clients today, but what if his clients sell? What if there's change in the family and somebody else inherits the land and they decide they want to sell it, right? And all of a sudden we're right back here. What I said was we've created precedents. There's a good, strong argument to make against that, and then we're in a slippery slope where we're now rezoning that whole area. And I think we all agree that's not something we want to do. Relative to the stores, again, I'd be more than happy to provide you guys the research we did in the stores. I still stand behind my 8 that I made a commitment to in a 2-mile radius. There's the Shell, Cracker Barrel, there's the Gulf, there's the Swifties, 59 Quick Stop, Kangaroo Express, Circle K, Exxon, Chevron, and then there's a Shell Food Mark. So again, more than happy to provide that to whomever wants to, but it is in a 2-mile radius, give or take, around our community. So plenty of places for us to pick from today relative to a convenience store. And then the last thing is I understood his comment about the black and white of this being a highway. I get that. But I live on this highway. We live in this community. This is our community. Yes, it's a highway. I get that. But I'm telling you, we're all here because we don't want this. We're telling you we already have convenience stores. We don't need more of them, right? And so that's why we're here and so passionate about this. And we're asking you to really honor what the people who live there, what we want. So I ask again for your consideration, and I'll defer.
Thank you.
Still got some
Thank you.
time?
Yes, he does. He's got 4 minutes.
I'm Tom Ballantyne from the Lakes. Got 3 other issues. One, I listened to the staff said they recommend denial of this request. That's one. Number 2, you're going to put a stop and rob in close to our communities. It brings crime right into our neighborhood, right at that corner. 24-hour lights on. It's an ideal place for a drug deal. You know, the drug dealers don't want to go where it's dark because then somebody's going to come and take their drugs away. So you're putting a stop and rob right in our neighborhood. We don't want that. And the last one is their development on drainage was pitiful. The drainage from that asphalt that's got toxic chemicals, gasoline, diesel, other lubricants and other things that drip on that go into the drainage pond beneath, and then that drainage pond goes north and goes west and goes into Bayou Chinchuba and comes right in behind my house. So we're very concerned about the drainage. There's no treatment plan of the water. It just goes into a drainage pond and then drifts off. So crime, we go along with the staff on denial, and we're worried about the drainage. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Yes, sir. If you state your name and address for the record.
Hi, my name is Bo Jelpy, 812 Fawn Road in Deerfield. I've got just a few points. With respect to the Prieto family, they've owned this property for a long time. It was zoned commercial for 25 years. They had 25 years to put a business like this on there if they wanted to. Mr. Shane said that they don't need to change any of the St. Tammany Parish regulations to build this, that it's going to be constructed in accordance with all of the regulations, except this one. This is the one they need to change, and they should not be allowed to do that over the objection of almost 1,700 directly impacted residents. Finally, two other points. With respect to the spot zoning argument, Mr. Shane stated that he referred to the mini storage across the street, that it was a lot closer to Oak Island than this would be to Deerfield. Mini storage is not a 24/7 convenience store. There's a big difference in the commercial traffic and impact of that. And finally, with respect to Mr. Shane's Pandora's box argument, I heard him say at least 10 different times that this zoning should be approved because of other zoning in the area. That's exactly what they're going to do next, and we need to not let it happen. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Opposition has a little over a minute left if there's anyone else who wishes to speak. Assuming all of you are in support of the comments made. With that, I would then close it to the public, and I will bring it to the commission. Commissioner Davis.
Yes, Mr. Daniels, would you please come up to the podium? Since it seems like you're representing everybody, what would you like to see being built there?
Well, I think the idea of putting in a commercial or convenience store is not a great idea. I think the way it's zoned today, it's zoned so that you don't have to have all the commercial businesses that they want to go with the HC2 zoning. Personally, I don't have a problem with the way it is today. Now, I know that may not be, that's a little tongue in cheek there. But all kidding aside, I just think anything, I understand y'all are in a challenge. You're looking at it and saying, well, what do you want me to do? Well, first of all, I want you to deny the rezoning. But secondly, if you said, well, I need to do something, what do you want me to do? I would think we would look for things that have minimal impact. I think Bo pointed out, made a point about the impact from storage versus a convenience store. And I think we'd all agree common sense tells you that's very different, right? So I guess what I would ask you to do is to, any type of consideration you're given, it would be what impact will that have on the community, right? And we've highlighted a number of things: traffic, congestion, crime. Of course, we highlighted the drainage impact, which I thought was a very good one. But again, if you have storage, I don't think you run the risk of your gas tanks spilling and getting gas in the water table and all kinds of craziness like that. So maybe something along those lines. I don't envy y'all's position, right? That's why y'all are up there and I'm over here. But all kidding aside, I just think the simple answer is I would love to keep it where it is today.
Okay, thank you.
Sure.
No, I'm not addressing you. Thank you.
Thank you.
I did a lot of research on this and a lot of thinking about this. And as far as the comment about spot zoning, that is the reason this board didn't allow the highway commercial to up there on Sharp Road. But the area around this corner is all commercial, as is. They're requesting a highway commercial 2 so they can just be able to fit this highway commercialization site on this. I like the idea of the advent of this of the turnabout there. I think that lessens the traffic impedance on this. Now, as far as the Prieto family owning this land for 50 years, that has no intake for me at all. It means nothing. But looking at it from a pure land use, if I was in one of the subdivisions out there and I was driving down Lonesome Road towards 59, and I had the availability to one, either stop and get gas, maybe a coffee, then drive across the street, wash my car, maybe go pick up my prescription drugs at the drugstore, and maybe on the next day go over and drop off some more stuff in my little storage house. This is the way I'm looking at almost a PUD, if anybody understands what a true PUD is. When you have a subdivision and a small amount of commercialization where it all impedes together. That's why I believe it's not too much of a risk to make a recommendation to the council to approve this. That's all I got to say.
Commissioner Richard?
I want to make a comment. When we talked about the Prieto family, and I don't know them, but the fact that somebody owned property that was zoned commercial for a long period of time, let's not discount that. It could be anybody in this room. And when we talk about the comprehensive rezoning, now, that happened before my time, but I've sat here and we've corrected many mistakes that happened in comprehensive rezoning. We didn't get it all right. It was a lot of effort by a lot of people, but to say that what we put down on paper and what the council agreed to was perfect is not a fair statement. So I wanted to make sure we at least state that someone owned property that was commercial, that was zoned in a manner that could actually have built this store. I don't want to discount that. Just as if it was your property, I'd want to take fair consideration as well.
Commissioner Casabon?
Yes, I concur with the property owner thing. When I'm looking at a particular area, I don't know who owns it, don't care who owns it, who has had it, but the zoning that was in place, and I don't know how many of the gentlemen were on and worked on the comprehensive zoning. I did, and we were given maps, and it was a lot of work, and yes, we made some mistakes, but I have also been on this commission long enough that I empathize, I understand, but we got the same amount of people here every time we got ready to develop one of your subdivisions. 1,700 people are in this, and I understand that, but every time, you know, the owner, you bought your home, I'm here, let's not make any more traffic, let's not put any more people. And every time, it's a hard decision because we understand that it's the traffic, it is. But I also am a proponent of the landowner that has the right to develop his property, that he's owned this. And it's really hard for us to know that 17 people are upset about this, but we have to look at the project that is being presented to us, that we're looking at 1.9 acres, that what is coming in the future, the roundabout, and how this is presented to us. We look at it, or I do, as an asset to the area, that you do not have to travel very far to get to some of the items that you might need at this particular place. I feel like this is an appropriate rezoning because of it was a C2 and what could have gone there. But I agree that this is an appropriate zoning, and I'll make a motion to approve.
We have a motion by Commissioner Casabon to approve, second by Commissioner Davis. Commissioner Dougherty.
Yes, Mr. Chairman, I'd like our legal counsel to, the term spot zoning came up a number of times in Mr. Danielson's presentation, and I believe a couple other folks also used the term spot zoning. I'd like to have our legal counsel tell us, the commissioners, what the legal ramification of spot zoning or how it's defined in the legal community.
The courts in Louisiana basically have looked at spot zoning as being fact-specific on each case. There's no one uniform definition that is used, but they look more to the facts of the case. The lead case on zoning is a Supreme Court case, the Palermo decision. It dealt with a landfill. But if you have a subdivision and you were to try to take and put in that subdivision that was zoned residential and put a landfill in the subdivision, that most probably would be spot zoning. When you have a commercial corridor, as we have on 59, the court is going to look at what else is in that corridor. If there are other commercial uses in that corridor, I doubt very seriously that it will be considered spot zoning because they are alike. It is when you take a zoning that is not similar to that that you run the risk of it being finally determined by a court to be arbitrary and capricious. Those are key words when you deal with the issue of spot zoning. That zoning is a legislative act of the local government. And the courts, whenever they deal with this issue of someone alleging that it's not an appropriate zone, the courts look at it and try to make a determination based upon the facts. Was this a decision that was arbitrary and capricious and had no reasonable connection to any underlying facts, whether it be the opposition of the neighbors or whatever conditions, drainage, that there was no way that the governmental entity could come to this decision on zoning and just say, no, we're going to do it, we don't care about anything else. And that's the legal way we look at these cases. The court, when a legislative body zones a piece of property, there is a presumption in favor of the governmental entity that they got it right. So it's the opponent's position to have to go into court and prove that was arbitrary and capricious. What the governmental body did was arbitrary and capricious. That is an extremely high burden to carry.
Thank you. Commissioner Lauren?
Yes, thank you. A couple of quick comments. I first moved over here in 1970. And back in those days, if you wanted to go to the dentist, you had to go to New Orleans. We just didn't have any development over here. I think St. Tammany Hospital probably had 25 beds in a total hospital. So if you need to go to the hospital, you had to go across the lake. With the development we've been seeing happening on the North Shore, and it's increasing at an ever-increasing rate, to think that there's going to be a 25-acre piece of land that's at the intersection where there's a roundabout that's going to go undeveloped, just remain as it is. If you think that's going to happen, you're dreaming. That isn't going to happen. Something's going to be there. You know, it could well be a subdivision. It could well be this development. But there's something going to be there. It's just not going to go vacant. So let's kind of wipe that out. Number two, kind of an explanation of what Martha said a while ago. During the comprehensive rezoning, there were a lot of mistakes made. And we've been correcting them almost on a monthly basis. Some of them, let's just for the sake of argument say this one was before zoned C2 and it got knocked down to NC1, so it got downgraded. There were some properties that were residential, but because they were next door to a bunch of commercial, they got zoned commercial. And when they go to sell the property, they're having a problem getting financing because it's improperly zoned. So every month, we make corrections to correct some up and some down to fine-tune what went through the comprehensive rezoning. It was not a perfect world, let me tell you. It wasn't a perfect world. The one question I'd like to ask of Mr. Shane, if I might, the one concern, Jeff, that I have is there have been developments, and I understand that this particular piece of property is conditionally under contract, pending rezoning. Okay. My concern is one that was voiced in the audience, the fact that we no longer have conditional use permits. Is there any way to protect that so that in fact, I'm sure if your client buys this property, he's going to develop what he said. But is there any way to protect that it will be developed as he said?
I think it's certainly possible. I think at the community meeting, there was a suggestion, and I believe it was from Ms. Slafer, but if I'm mistaken, someone else in the audience that asked about the possibility of a deed restriction. My client is not interested in deed restricting the property, not because of the stated benefit, I guess you might say, that it would produce. We were I worked since that community meeting to see if there was going to be a proposal for us to consider. It's difficult for my client to understand why this 2 acres should be deed restricted when in fact none of the other properties in the area are deed restricted. I mean, with all due respect, I've seen many storage facilities at a time when highest and best use calls for other uses be redeveloped into commercial and retail uses. So to answer your question, I think a company that's going to come in and spend, and this is my best guess, but probably it's a $5 million facility between land improvements and stock and inventory. Although they have every reason to believe it's going to be successful, they have nearly 1,300 stores throughout the country. They do have to think about the possibility if the business is not successful. So to preclude potential uses would probably be a mistake from an entrepreneurial standpoint. For some, that may sound as if I'm coming out of both sides of my mouth. Let me just answer the question even more directly and say that my client wants to sell this property to someone who is committed to put in a neighborhood corner store. And I would say that when this case leaves, the zoning commission will see what path it takes, and maybe there'll be issues, other issues that can be discussed as well. But we're not prepared this evening to discuss or commit to any form of deed restriction.
Thank you, Mr. Shane. Are there any other questions from the commission? If not, we have a motion by Commissioner Casabon to approve, second by Commissioner Davis. Please vote. Motion carries. If you wish to appeal the recommendation of the commission, you have every right to do so. You will appeal it to the council, and the appeals cards are to our right. Thank you. We will give a few minutes for the public to exit the building. We would like to proceed. Zoning case 2016-314-ZC, existing zoning MD1 Medical Residential District, proposed zoning HC2 Highway Commercial District, the parcel 1.199 acres, the petitioner Frank D. Lemire, the owner Alexander Milne Development Services, Frank D. Lemire, parcel located on Milne Circle, east of Alexander Drive, and Louisiana Highway 21, Ward 5, District 6. Staff?
The site is currently developed as a residential assisted living facility for residents who are intellectually and physically challenged in their daily activities. Staff does not have any compelling reason to recommend approval to the request, considering that there are no parcels of land zoned HC2 Highway Commercial Zoning District and/or commercial uses in the immediate vicinity of the site. Note that the objective of the request is to allow for the operation of a restaurant to be open to the general public. The staff recommends that the request for HC2 Highway Commercial District be denied.
Thank you. Is the petitioner here?
Yes.
If you please come to the podium, state your name and address for the record and the reason for your request, sir.
Frank D. Lemire, 1065 Milne Circle, Waldheim, Louisiana, is what I was trying to say. Milne Developmental Services is a facility that provides services to men and women who are developmentally disabled. Milne Developmental Services has been, in one form or the other, it was Alexander Milne Home for Women for many years. We moved to Waldheim approximately a year ago, and we had the MD1 designation for 53 acres. The 1.19 acre that we're requesting to be zoned commercial is it's totally surrounded by the other 51 acres that's there. When we moved to Waldheim and we opened up a cafeteria to serve our employees and our residents and have gatherings there. One of our main focuses is to be a part of the community and have the community come to us so that our clients and the community interact and that we serve our clients in a way that they truly are a part of the community. As the cafeteria was open and we started serving customers from the community, we got many requests from members of the community to expand the services of the restaurant. In order to do that, and to be able to advertise to do that, we would need to have the commercial designation. We want and need that facility to be profitable. As the cafeteria is operating, it's really nice, but it's not very profitable, and we'd like to see it become profitable. And we think we need that designation to do that. We're not actually on Highway 21. It's off of Alexander Drive, which is about 150 yards off the highway. And as I said, the property is completely surrounded by the MD1. That's our purpose. That's our mission. I don't have another compelling argument to tell you, but that's what we're trying to do. And I'll say that very simply. There are two board members here that may want to address you guys, if I can yield to.
Certainly. We'll invite them to speak as well. Thank you, sir.
Good evening. This is my first time in one of these zoning commission meetings, and it's fascinating. How often do you have them?
Every
Because
month.
This is amazing. Okay.
Come on back and visit us.
I am the current president of the Milne Home for Women, current president of the board of directors. And with respect to the comment that Mr. Lemire just made, he's our executive director. He said he wanted us to be profitable. I have to explain that to you. Currently, it costs about $308 to provide services to our residents. The state of Louisiana only gives us less than half of that, about $138. So the board of directors has asked our executive director and his team to lower our expenses and to come up with ways that we can fill the gap, because we pride ourselves in providing great service to our residents. And another thing about this, the second point I want to raise about this Cafe Milne, now Milne Cafe Seafood and Steakhouse. It is not a standalone building. It is in a community center, and that community center has a salon for the residents. It also has classrooms where we train our staff, and also our residents go to these classrooms and have learning sessions. For instance, we recently asked the St. Tammany Parish Master Gardeners to come and teach our residents the difference between seedlings and weeds, because we're getting ready to have some gardens and a horticultural program for the benefit of our residents. So those are the points that I wanted to make, and thank you for your time.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Is there anyone else who wishes to speak in support of the request?
This is a wonderful training
Excuse me, ma'am, if you would state your name and address.
Linda Farringa.
Thank you.
Past president. I've been on the board of directors for 40 years, and I've watched us come a long, long way. This is a great training facility for our residents. We take care of a wide variety of range of disabilities. Some of our residents, a life experience, a life learning thing would be to learn how to brush your teeth correctly and get your shoes on the right feet 100% of the time. Others, there's about 10 of them, work in this cafe. They work and they get paid. They're paid minimum wage, and they wash dishes and they set tables and they greet you at the door. We hope eventually to be able to train people here in this and then place them in occupations outside of Milne. This is important. This is where the direction of the care of the developmentally disabled is going, and this is part and parcel of what we do. This piece of land, when we first bought it, was conditional use institutional, and then we converted it to MD1. And so the piece that we're talking about, we are not, if it fails, we are not possibly going to lease it out to anybody or anything like that. because it's part and parcel of this thing. The classrooms are in there. It's not going anywhere. Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am. Is there anyone else who wishes to speak in favor of the request? Yes, sir. Please state your name and address for the record.
I'm Richard Kivett. I'm the mayor of Sun, Louisiana. Subsequently, I live there in Sun. First off, my daughter works at Milne. She's been there a year or so now. But through her, I've got to know the administration of Milne, and I've eaten at the restaurant a number of times. I'd like to say it's a delightful dining experience. Has any of you people on the commission dine there?
Not yet, sir.
Well, may I suggest you do? It's a wonderful asset for this rural community, and I'm 100% for it, and I hope y'all don't let it die. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. And thank you for your service to the community. Is there anyone else who wishes to speak in favor? Is there anyone who wishes to speak in opposition? Yes, sir. Please come to the podium, state your name and address.
Good evening. My name is Wayne Worth. I live at 77181 Highway 21, directly across the street from Milne Home. Actually, I have 3 parcels there, about 20 acres. I submitted a petition to you this evening with 43 names of my neighbors and other people that oppose this change. I'll be quick. The decisions you had to make before were pretty intense, so I'll just make 3 points. First, the proposed change is one that would allow a very intense and inconsistent use of the property, and this would affect the neighbors as well as the ladies who reside there. You have, I think, in your parcel the drawing provided by the applicant. The homes around this are where the ladies live. You may also notice that this restaurant with 18 tables has 18 parking spaces, so any other parking would be in front of the homes of the ladies. The second thing is that the HC2, according to my meeting with Mr. Lemire here, is their pathway to an alcohol license. They wish to serve and must serve during their weddings, first for the restaurant. They intend to serve alcohol in this institution, and they intend to hold weddings, banquets, and other events. Those facts are outlined in an interview by the Director of Food Services for this same institution. Those events, any possible number might come to mind, will not fit in this particular area. So the tents which are offered in the article in the Times-Picayune would have to be outside, so it would be certainly an abuse of the HC2 approval if you were to grant that sort of thing. And lastly, you might consider that the commercial activities that are proposed here go far beyond what we as a community came and supported Milne Home. I know most of the people, including the new president of the board, because my wife and I are friends of, supporters of, and contributors to Milne. This is the first time I'm speaking in opposition to them, because this is definitely something you do not want to see happen within this community or to impact the neighbors who have signed off on asking you to oppose it. But maybe a further point should be made. This is a 501c3 institution, and as such, it was constructed with a substantial amount of federal funds, including the restaurant, of course. And those federal funds, taxpayers' money, it made sense when we all supported it, because it was intended for the ladies and for the community to come to. Actually, when they opened, I brought them a case of honey from my hive, so we definitely welcome this group to the community. But now this change would put them in direct competition with all of the other restaurants and venues offering weddings and such things which are legally established and I'm sure, well adapted to serving alcohol and all the things that go along with the South Louisiana wedding. So I would submit to you that this, an approval of this restaurant, and it's according to Mr. Lemire and his director, Gary, I met with, is their first step to getting their alcohol permit, is something that's very incompatible with the institution that they're, and the women that they're there to serve, and definitely with the neighborhood. And with that, I'm concluded.
Thank you, sir.
All right.
Is there anyone else in opposition? If you would state your name and address for the record, sir.
My name is John DeHemicourt, 23185 Highway 435, Abita Springs, Louisiana. I have 3 comments to make. This was brought to my attention early this week. So as a duty, I went to see the facility firsthand. I went into the restaurant and I was greeted by a hostess, one might suggest, well, maybe it was a waitress, but in any event, I asked for menus and I got a copy immediately of the lunch menu and the dinner menu. I then asked for a copy of the wine list. I was told that they didn't have a license, so they couldn't give me a wine list, but with every meal they served 2 drinks, alcohol drinks. I thanked her and I left. That was Wednesday. Friday mid-morning, I called St. Tammany Parish Planning and Zoning to get a clarification on the alcohol beverage license for the parish. I'm very much aware of the one for the state. To find out whether or not you could serve alcohol without a permit if you're not selling it, quote unquote. And the answer was absolutely not. You can not only not sell it, you cannot serve it, you cannot even store it. So I went back Friday night with my wife for dinner. They gave us menus and I asked for a wine list. The waitress said, you know, we've been serving alcohol here for a month. This afternoon, before I came in, they came in and took all the alcohol off the premises. Just something we need to keep in mind. Obviously, the rules simply don't apply to this organization. The second thing is I'd like you to consider the effect on the tax-paying businesses. This organization has received a minimum of 5 to a maximum of over $8 million of federal grant money. They pay no taxes. How do you expect restaurants and other special events facilities to properly compete against this? And the answer is they cannot. And the third issue is they talk about the mission. My family has multiple generations of experience with dealing with special needs people. And I can tell you, a commercial kitchen is not a safe environment. There are trained professional chefs every day in this country to get injured in kitchens. There's all kind of mishaps that can happen. A skillet with oil that's flaming, if you put as little as a teaspoon of water in there, you'll produce an 8-foot fireball. If you take that same skillet that's flaming, you drop it into a big slop sink that only has a little spattering of water in the bottom, it'll do the same thing. If someone cuts their finger and starts bleeding and it touches anything that has to do with food, everything associated with that has to be destroyed. Otherwise, you run the risk of delivering a blood-borne disease to a customer in the food. I have been to Texas where they have facilities like this. And the route they've taken is they've had a store, an arts and crafts store, manned by volunteers so there's no cost to operate it in terms of manpower. The community produces things to be sold, and local artisans donate or highly discount items to be sold in the store for that facility. That fits the mission of this operation. A commercial kitchen with the stress associated with delivering food to a volume of people, not to mention a 200-person wedding, is not a place for these people. It's not safe for them, it's injurious to their mission, and you know, in Louisiana, and I know this very, very well because I operate one of these facilities, we have a real strong history of wonderful wedding events with open bars. And that brings to the table a significant amount of issues that have to be properly tended to. And in a community such as this, it's a disaster. The parking alone would consume the entire facility with the 200-person wedding. I would recommend this organization turn this request down, and if there's any questions, I'll be happy to answer them. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, sir. Is there anyone else who wishes to speak in opposition? If not, I'll bring it back to the petitioner for a rebuttal. You have 5 minutes, sir.
First, I'd like to say that I'm unaware of us selling any alcoholic beverage there. To my knowledge, that's never occurred. That's new to me. If we were going to serve alcohol in the restaurant, which we do intend to do, I mean, Mr. Worth was not, we talked about this, but we intend to make it a 2-drink limit, and you have to have a meal in order to be served. You know, we think that's something that people want when they come to a restaurant to eat, is to be able to do that. We've never done that. The only intention that we have is to run the restaurant. We actually did talk about whether we could do weddings or whether we could do other functions out there. And all of that was meant, from our point of view, to encourage more community involvement so that our clients and the general community would be in closer association with each other. Right now, we actually host the Telephone Company Pioneers meeting once a month, and we allow them to come out there and have their meeting, and that's the kind of things we want to do. I mean, we would rather have the Kiwanis clubs or anybody else that wants to have a place to come and meet and have a meeting to come out there and do it and meet our ladies and know about Milne and support our mission. And that's the only thing that we want. That's all we're asking for. The other things that you're hearing about are pretty fantasy, if you choose. Thank you very much for your time.
Thank you, sir.
Mr. Lemire? Mr. Lemire?
Yes, sir.
Right. Mr. Richardson, you have a question?
Mr. Lemire?
Yes, sir.
Are there any restaurants or cafes in Walhang?
No.
Okay, thank you.
Yes, ma'am. You're still in a rebuttal, so.
Every year, we give a Mardi Gras ball for our residents. It's black tie, evening dresses, jewelry. We invite family, friends, etc. This past year, I think we had 250 people there. We had a band. It was bitterly cold, so everybody kind of stayed inside. We didn't disturb one neighbor. Not one person knew that it was going on. Thanksgiving time, there's a man by the name of Art Arnold. I don't know if anybody's ever met Mr. Arnold, but he gives a Thanksgiving luncheon for 300 people, and he lost his venue, and he came to Milne last year. We had 300 people the Saturday before Thanksgiving, 100 at 11:30, 100 at 12:30, and 100 at 1:30. Not one person in the neighborhood was disturbed or even knew that it was going on. The circle around Milne I've walked it. It's more than a mile. So we can handle a lot of parking. And we have not disturbed anybody.
Thank you. Yes, ma'am. You're going to speak in support of the petitioner? Against, okay. We're right now we're having people speak in support of the petitioner. We'll get to you. Is there anyone else who wishes to speak in support? We'll now turn rebuttal over to the, yes, you may. You're speaking in support? Yes.
First,
Come to the microphone, please.
the federal funds that were referred to were not grants, it was FEMA money, because the Milne Home used to be Milne Home for orphaned and destitute girls, and it changed to Milne Home for women, and now it's Milne Developmental Services. Well, it was located in Gentilly, and it was wiped out as a result of Katrina, and for 10 years we were displaced, so we had to move the residents, who were ladies at the time, 44 approximately, and they went to Laurel, Mississippi for 10 years, and we brought some property to bring our ladies back home. So it was FEMA money. It's about $8 million in FEMA money. plus loans and plus some of our money. And then the second thing is that with respect to the workers who are residents, they don't prepare any of the meals. They do what they're capable of doing, whether it's folding utensils in a napkin or taking orders, but they don't cook. Thank you.
Thank you. Yes, ma'am. You'd state your name and address.
My name is Celeste Chabert, and I'm a resident of 201 Churchill Downs Drive. My husband and I have been residing at that location for 16 years now. I'm a retired registered nurse who was previously employed at a psychiatric facility for over 11 years. And the joy that I have seen in this facility goes beyond imagination. I've been there on a number of occasions. I've had dinner there. I've worked with the ladies there. We go, we sit, and we sew, and we talk. Their joy is the pride of this facility. Their joy is the pride of their restaurant. They are not serving us. They may fold the napkins, they may set the table, but they get they get paid for this, and they thoroughly enjoy it. You can't imagine how terrible it is not to have some joy in your life at a menial job. They will never be wage earners. They will never be one that goes out and accomplishes what you accomplish. But in their every day at this facility, you must go and visit it. You must go and sit and watch. Don't make a judgment on this restaurant on a few disgruntled people who are afraid of alcohol. These ladies are well supervised. They always have assistants with them. There are always people around them. We were there today, and the room was filled with not only the ladies, but their people who are with them at all times. If they have a party out there, wouldn't you like to go to a party? Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am. Anyone else who wishes to speak? If not, we'll turn it over to the opposition. 5 minutes for rebuttal if anyone in the opposition wishes to speak. Yes, sir.
Thank you. Just to be clear, the restaurant was always a part of the Milne's effort that we worked for and approved. What has gone off the rails here is the interest in making an HC2 zoning, which is, you know, a very powerful spot zone. Matter of fact, this is probably the poster child for spot zoning. It's a postage stamp within that 50 acres across from my property. So if they are not successful, let me go this route. Ms. Lemire made it clear in my meetings with him that their interest is to make money. They need to make money. And the intensity that they will push this restaurant with their liquor license and the wedding venues, which is not a rumor, it's an article in the newspaper, should be clear to everybody here. The interest is to make money. Oh, and by the way, should the restaurant fail, HC2 stands. All of the things that could come into play are possible. We would have no input in that. Now, if the interest is to make money, you go to the highest bidder with your liquor license and your facility, and you get what you can. That's what we fear. I believe that, unless you have questions, would be all that I want to say.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Yes, sir.
My apologies, I'm on the recovering side of the 3-day July flu that's going around. Call the $5 to $8 million what you want. It's federal money that's not paid back. Grant, FEMA, doesn't matter what the title is. On Friday night, I did inquire as to whether or not they would host a 200-person wedding. And if so, did they have a price list? And I was informed that I should contact the chef, let him know what it is we'd like, and he would give us a price. This is not a figment, this is a goal. My family has supported this kind of operation for 2 generations. They have a wonderful mission. I think they're going off the rails with this idea. And I think they're going to lose a whole bunch of money in the effort. And that's coming from someone who's done this for 20 years. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Any last comments for opposition? Yes, sir.
Name is Jay Lozes, 77065 Highway 21. Just want to refute one point. The point was made about the Mardi Gras party, that nobody knew it was going on. I could hear the band in my front yard, and I don't appreciate it. I see their lights every night from that facility as it is now. I can only imagine if this grows to where they have additional personnel, additional parking, and additional lights, how it's going to affect my residents. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. This time we'll close it to the public and bring it to the commission. Commissioner Willie.
The question I have is of staff. Helen, I keep hearing classrooms and meetings. Is there any way that what they want to do here could be fall under another classification other than HC2, like some type of institutional or educational facility zoning, to accomplish what they're proposing to do?
Well, as you know, the request that it was the way it was explained to me is that they wanted to open a restaurant to the general public. So in order to do that and to obtain the type of liquor license that they explained to me that they wanted to obtain, they have to go to an HC zoning.
So you telling me their proposed use would not follow any type of institutional zoning or ED zoning or anything?
No, the restaurant, okay. Having a restaurant open to the residents is an accessory to the existing current zoning. Mm-hmm. However, if they want to be open to the general public, then they have to go to an HC zone.
Okay, thank you.
Commissioner Davis.
Yeah. Yeah, this would definitely be spot zoning. There's no question about that. In addition to that, it's not even on a highway commercial area. It's off. So it's a pretty no-brainer to me about this. I mean, I'm sure the Milne individuals do a great job and everything like that, but if you learned anything from this last session that we just had previously, I'd make a motion to deny.
Motion by Commissioner Davis to deny. Commissioner Dougherty.
Yes, Helen, on the parking issue, when a piece of property is zoned for an HC2, the parking has to be on that parcel. Is that correct?
Correct. We will have to get the number of employees, the number of seats, and determine the required number of parking spaces. And it will have to be provided within the area that is requested to be rezoned.
So the using the street would not be counted into the parking spaces. Is that correct?
They will have to provide the parking area within the HC2 commercial.
Okay. All right. Thank you.
Mr. Davis, or excuse me, Ms. Casabon.
Sorry.
Okay. Helen, and within that HC2, the zoning is for that particular size lot and building that we're talking about?
Correct.
And within that, they would be limited to a certain amount. Do they have to have a different type of permit if it was an outside wedding, tents, and so on? Or is that just for that facility and restaurant?
Yeah, the activities or the restaurant will have to take place within the HC2 zone area if it is
not off wherever they can fit them and stuff. It
No.
has to be within the building or within that particular area.
That's correct.
I really don't have a problem with the federal government. I am glad the federal government and FEMA gave money to people that needed it and to make their lives better. I see this not really as a spot zoning because I feel like it's inside. I know there's other event venues that it's part of what we have put on them in order to be able to have weddings and venues that, you know, serve the public, to get the liquor license, to serve the liquor. It's, I think that it's something that will benefit this area, but because it's within this, not on a highway, I wouldn't have done it if it was on a highway. But with it being, I'm thinking of Vintage Court and some of the others that they have to have this the highway commercial. I don't know, as we asked, is there any other zoning that would allow them to have alcohol without the HC? Is there anything else that we?
Well, if you would go to an NC zoning, it would allow for the restaurant and it would allow for them to apply for a liquor license. However, it would be limited to only beer and wine. It's without a lounge.
All that. Would y'all be conducive to that, to downgrading that it's not a highway commercial, beer and wine, you know, at a function or whatever? But I think because it's inside of this, I really don't have a problem with it, because we have restaurants within other areas and facilities, you know, the Quail Farm in that particular area and different places that do serve alcohol and stuff, that I don't have a problem with it. We have Mr. Davis, what did you have in mind?
I have a question for the Milne people. Do you own any of the property on 21? Do you have any property at all on 21 where you could build a restaurant?
We own the first probably 400 feet on Highway 21 between the Waltime Methodist Church and Hope Church.
You see, I have to disagree with Martha. I mean, it's clearly spot zoning to do this. I mean, I just can't see how you cannot think it's not spot zoning to do this. No, ma'am, I'm talking to this gentleman. So if you were to request and had a piece of property on the Highway 21 and wanted to build a restaurant, I'd be much more inclined to grant that.
I think that defeats like the purpose of the help that they are training, or like you said, building up the residents for help.
If I may, Commissioners, we address the public, not one another, so we can state our position, but we don't want to debate among the commissioners. But you can please state your position to the public.
My position is that with allowing this, that you're giving them the opportunity to continue to train, you know, the disabled people, give them some self-esteem, and like I said, I don't have a problem with it.
My position is I do.
Okay.
And I made a motion.
You already have a motion to deny. Commissioner Dougherty?
I don't believe I heard a second on Jimmy's motion. So
That is correct. There is no second.
I will second it.
Second by Commissioner Dougherty to deny. Commissioner Lauren?
Yes. Just a comment or two. For those of you that aren't familiar with the property, it's up on 21 going towards Sun, almost where the new back entrance into Money Hill goes in. It's right in that neighborhood by the Walheim Methodist Church. I had the good fortune to go up there a couple of months ago to a luncheon. And when we went in, it's a very unique situation. You can't tell it much from these drawings, but it must be 300-400 yards off the highway. It's way back in there. And when you go back in there, there's a parking lot, there's a parking area, and you go into the dining area. When we went in, someone in our group asked if there was any alcohol, do they serve alcohol? And they said no. So if someone else went in and got alcohol, it wasn't the norm, because when our group went, we were told no. Okay. It was a delightful experience, and you could tell they were utilizing, I don't want to call them handicapped people, but they were limited people, and they were using them to the best of their ability. There are other businesses in the city of Covington that does the same thing. Franco's does it, okay? But I don't have a problem with it, where it's located and how they're intending to use it. I don't have a problem in the world with it.
Commissioner Casabon? No. If there are no further, Commissioner Richardson?
I'm familiar with this location, and I don't have a problem with it.
Okay, we have 3, no problems with it. However, we have a motion by Commissioner Davis to deny and a second by Commissioner Dougherty. No further comments. And let me remind the commission, we have a motion to deny. A yes vote is to deny. Please vote. The motion to deny fails. Do we have any other motion?
I'll make a motion to approve.
Motion by Commissioner Lauren to approve, second by Commissioner Willie. Any further debate? Again, we have a motion by Commissioner Lauren to approve, second by Commissioner Willie. Please vote. Motion to approve carries. Case 2016-316-ZC. Existing zoning. Existing zoning, A1 Suburban District, proposed zoning, HC2 Highway Commercial District. The parcel, 1 acre. The petitioner, Michael Ivick. The owner, succession of Danny K. Willingham, care of Madeline Farmer, parcel located on the north side of U.S. Highway 90, west of Honey Island Marina Road, Ward 8, District 13. Staff?
The 2025 future land use plan calls for the area to be developed as a conservation area with uses that would allow for the preservation of the natural environment and compatible commercial uses. The objective of this requested zoning change is to allow for the use of the existing dock and marina type structures on the site. Staff does not have any objection to the request and would like to recommend approval.
Is the petitioner here? Okay, fine. If you would come to the podium, state your name and address, ma'am.
Lynn Owens, and I'm 24 Park Lane in Folsom.
And the reason for your request?
Well, the property was commercially zoned originally, and in fact, I had run a bait shop with live bait and lotto tickets and beer and boiled seafood. So and rental boats also. So it did all that. We had a pretty good business going, and now the usage really would be extremely minimal in comparison to what that was. The fellow wants to just offload his oysters. He will have a minimal of maybe 2 to 4 oyster boats there at a time, and in doing so, they have to have a refrigerated truck that's on the premises when the boats arrive to offload straight onto the trucks. As soon as they're loaded, they leave. And that's pretty much all that will be going on. And it's not every month of the year. It's very minimal. It's not even really truly probably not even 6 months of the year. It'd be during oyster season and when his boats are in that area.
So our months with R's in them is for oyster season, is that correct?
Yes, I believe so. That's the right time to eat them.
That's what Louisiana rumor has it. Thank you, ma'am.
Okay.
Is there anyone else who wishes to speak in support of the request?
Good afternoon. My name's Steve Earhart. I live in Lakeshore, Mississippi, 5186 Bordash Street. Previously, this marina was open, like she said, for seafood, live bait, lottery tickets in Mississippi. That I had to make my every Saturday morning trip there for my winning numbers, failing numbers, losing ones. But anyway, as an oyster fisherman myself, I've offloaded at that marina multiple times myself with my own oyster boat. And as a matter of fact, right across the highway, there's another facility that's operated the exact same way, owned by Mike Cure from Bayou Caddy, Mississippi. And it's a needed thing on a state line right there. We don't have no decent docking facilities for that general area. And with the state law having these units on our boats to cross state lines, it makes it difficult to cross to the closest marina would be Bayou Caddy and or Hopedale, which is a 4-hour difference. So that's why we're looking for the chance to use that facility once again in the same way that it was used previously in the years past. After Katrina happened, a lot of things changed, a lot of coastal communities. And Lynn really couldn't afford to come back. And through some problems with a marriage, and the property got lost. And now there's a chance to bring the possibility of some jobs. And the best thing for me would be 3 hours less every day to travel to offload my oysters. So that's why I am in approval of it.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else who wishes to speak in favor? Is there anyone who wishes to speak in opposition? Seeing none, I close it to the public and I bring it to the commission. Commissioner Casabon.
Make a motion to approve.
Second.
Motion by Commissioner Casabon to approve, second by Commissioner Dougherty. Is there any further comments? Please vote. Motion carries. 2016-324-ZC, existing zoning, A1 Suburban District. Proposed zoning, A2 Suburban District and Manufactured Housing Overlay. The parcel's 5 acres. The petitioner, Connie B. Cutrer. The owner, Connie B. Cutrer. Cedru Bickham Jr., Donna Ray Bickham, Lester Ray Bickham, Darrell N. Bickham, Philip Bickham, and Bessie Bickham Goodlow. The location, the parcel is located on the east side of Louisiana Highway 450, south of Bickham Road, north of Louisiana Highway 25, being 86004 Highway 450, Franklinton, Ward 2, District 3. Staff?
The 2025 future land use plan calls for the area to be developed with residential and agricultural uses. Staff does not have any objection to the request and recommends the designation be approved.
Thank you. Is the petitioner here? Would you please come to the podium, state your name and address and your reason for the request, please?
My name is Connie Cutrer. I live at 86006 Highway 450, Folsom, but it's actually considered Franklinton. And the reason for the request is it's family property, and my dad lives there, and I just wanted to stay close by to help take care of him.
Thank you. Is there anyone else in the public who wishes to speak in favor? Is there anyone who wishes to speak in opposition? Seeing none, close it to the public, bring it to the commission. Commissioner Willie.
Yes, Mr. Chairman, I'm real familiar with the property and the family, and I move for approval.
Motion by Commissioner Willie to approve. Commissioner Lauren?
I'll second it.
Second by Commissioner Lauren. Any further discussion? Seeing none, we have a motion by Commissioner Willie to approve, second by Commissioner Lauren. Please vote. Motion carries. 2016-325-ZC, existing zoning, A4 single-family residential district. Proposed zoning, HC1 highway commercial district. The parcel, 20,000 square feet. The petitioner, Richard A. Trask. The owner, Richard A. Trask. The parcel is located on the west side of U.S. Highway 11, north of North 2nd Avenue, south of North 3rd Avenue, being lots 6, 7, 12, and 13, Square 4, Town of Elton, Ward 8, District 14. Staff?
The 2025 future land use plan calls for the area to be developed with commercial uses. There's an existing building on the site which was previously operated as a barber shop. Staff does not have any objection to the request considering there's an existing site. Zone HC1 highway commercial directly to the south. The staff recommends that the request for HC1 designation be approved.
Thank you. Is the petitioner here? No petitioner? Is there anyone who wishes to speak in favor? Anyone who wishes to speak in opposition? Seeing none, I close it to the public, bring it to the commission. Commissioner Dougherty.
Mr. Chairman, since the petitioner has not made an appearance here, and since there's probably questions on this, I'd put a motion on the floor to postpone until our September meeting.
Second.
Motion by Commissioner Dougherty to postpone until September. Second by Commissioner Randolph. Commissioner Casabon? That's okay? Okay. We have a motion by Commissioner Dougherty to postpone, second by Commissioner Randolph. Please vote. Motion carries. Is there any old business to come before the commission?
Mr. Chairman, I don't know if you would consider this as old business or new business, but I just wanted to confirm which commissioners will attend the meeting, or if any will attend the meeting on the 15th of August.
I will attend it, and I will chair the meeting.
Okay. And
who
is it
else
just-
would like to attend? Yes? No? Commissioner Lauren? Correct. Would you like to attend? Commissioner Drum?
And I want to publicly thank you and Mr. Fitzmaurice for coming to that meeting that I talked you into.
Commissioner Lauren, are you in?
Well, for the record, this is 1 month in a row that we've gone without a petition to rezone something in Hillcrest for the manufacturer. So we're 1 in a row.
All right, we're on a roll.
I can answer that
So
question.
right now we have Commissioner Drum and myself for the community meeting. Are you going to be in the community meeting? Yes. Commissioner Lauren? Anyone else? Commissioner Richard? No? Yes, no? He will try to make it. Okay, well, that will be 4. August 15th, I'll pick you up. And it will be here, and we have 4 commissioners. Is there any other business? If not, we'll entertain a motion to adjourn. So moved.